that's when you're really appreciated.
We'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us this afternoon, where we'll review the agenda items, those action items that will be formally addressed next Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. right here at Board Chambers. That'll be on July 18th. For a review of those action items, I'm going to call upon our city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow. Mr. Burrow?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. We have with us today Gary Troutman, President and CEO of the Greater Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce and the Hot Springs Metro Partnership. He's here to deliver his economic development report. So prior to getting into your agenda for the meeting, Gary will give his presentation. How you doing, Gary?
Thank you, Bill, and
welcome.
Board. Appreciate the time. And Scott Deuce is going to report on Majestic here in just a minute when I conclude mine, if that's all right. Since last month, Representative Warren and Dr. Hogan have convened the Education Council, kind of a bittersweet meeting. Sean Cook's last after 33 years in education and be 18 at Lakeside, I believe. But anyway, Sean's riding off into the sunset. We hate to lose him, but Bruce Orr will be a great replacement there. So welcome him. I was watching the 4-hour and 10-minute meeting the other night. I have to say I couldn't get in, but I watched every minute of it, and I just wanted to throw a lifeline out to the Hyperfiber guy. We've been working with him for some time out of St. Louis. Actual owner of the company went to Hot Springs High through 10th grade. I don't know if that was mentioned the other night, but they live in St. Louis, and they're actually they're obviously wanting to do parts of Hot Springs that don't have coverage. But they're that rare company that's willing to go in the village on the Garland County side. And there hadn't been a lot of takers, frankly. After Ritter came in guns a-blazing and did great things. But every time I see a Ritter person, I say, man, y'all's rock. Your terrain is worse than we ever would have encountered. And consequently, nobody's exactly, standing in line to jump in the village, but they are, and to parts of North Garland County. So appreciate you all working with them the other night, and we have hooked them up with the village POA and Garland County. We met with the 10 County Workforce Board, Development Board. Jones Mill teardown continues. If you've been through there, you're not going to recognize it. The skyline looks completely different. All the silos are gone. Cole is working with a company. We opened a new project file this past month, out-of-state company with interest in Hot Springs. We continue with our short workforce advisory grant. We've got a committee of 16 that we're sharing with Joe Quinn out of Northwest Arkansas, who's the Arkansas rep for SHRM. I was honored to participate in a statewide podcast with our AEDC Executive Director, Clint O'Neill, and my peers from Russellville, Dr. Megan Selman and John Chadwell from Newport. Didn't think much of it until someone from Illinois told me the other day, said, hey, I heard your podcast. And I was like, wow, I didn't know anybody actually listened to those. So want to congratulate, he's in the audience. I may have mentioned it last month, but promised this the last time. Cole, Scott, and Gary Jackson and I went to Little Rock. Cole was honored for Arkansas Businesses 40 Under 40. So proud of him. Our lone, although we nominated more, our lone Hot Springs representative this year. A lot that we don't talk about sometimes is business retention and expansion visits, and we've been working more on those. Spent a lot of time with U.S. Vanadium. You might be interested to learn that even though the name is U.S. Vanadium, their offices are in Hot Springs and Benton. Their owner lives in Denver, their sales manager in Pittsburgh, but they have 2 offices in the country, and they're here within 30 miles of each other. We also visited that same day with ORG Chemical Group out at the industrial park, and their general manager, tour of their facility. We had our MSA group at the village. Kelly Hell, the village GM, joined us that day. So we got a lot of news what's going on there. You've probably seen the Arkansas unemployment rate. If you've been watching the news, it's 2.7. Hot Springs, it's got to be an all-time low, 2.2%. And the thing that I know you all know about unemployment, 2.2 might as well be 0, because the 2.2% are not going to, they're collecting benefits. Those folks are probably not going to work. So in all essence, we're at 0% unemployment. There were 2 workforce stories featured on the front page of the Democrat Gazette. That's refreshing to see that from all of our perspectives. Scott's got a couple things he wants to tell you. Mayor, got to visit with your successor at Levi and take a brief tour at the hospital, and enjoyed visiting with Zane. Cole and I met with Roberto Ortego from Keith Smith Company. We're trying to continue the pattern for Hot Springs of local companies winning the Governor's Award for Excellence in Global Trade, Exporting and Importing. We're brainstorming some nominees for later this year. And we visited with National Park Medical Center, getting the latest from Scott Smith and Casey Willis, CEO and COO. I guess AEDC has this contest every year now. It's the coolest thing made in Arkansas. We have 3 local nominees. They are Crystal Ridge Distillery. So I guess moonshine is considered a real cool thing to make. Alliance Rubber and Dan's Whetstones. So we've been promoting those 3 in the contest. I know you all were excited, as was I, to see that National Park College is teaming with UA Monticello for 4-year bachelor degrees right here in Hot Springs for kindergarten through 6th grade education. Gary Jackson attended the Arkansas Aerospace and Defense Alliance Board meeting at Saline County Career and Tech Center, and while I was off on vacation, Cole subbed for me in the Arkansas Broadband Leaders Network Zoom call that has been established to make sure broadband, and I say that, I want to kind of touch back on that. We mentioned the village and Hot Springs parts are untouched. On the heels of Mr. Kennedy's rep being in front of y'all the other night, subsequently there was an article in the Democrat, $1 billion has been appropriated to finish out any broadband in Arkansas. I can't imagine with all the ARPA grants and everything else, there's going to be a whole lot left. But you might say we've got $1 billion insurance policy to make sure everything gets blanketed. So even those most remote parts of the city and county are going to be covered there. Finishing up our ACT Work Ready community, our goal is 70 businesses. We have 47 now, so we're over 2/3 of the way towards our goal in just 3 months there. And we did meet, as I mentioned, with, or maybe I didn't, but Joe Quinn came down. We met with him, our Workforce Advisory Committee, and kind of talked about what we need to do. We will be charged with laying out a workforce plan for Hot Springs and things that we think should be done differently in the workforce community. I know this is a June report and we're 11 days into July, but I feel like I need to touch on this. You know, we've said from the get-go the kind of the frustrations that we knew we would have with the Army-Navy Hospital, ACTI, but we also kind of said that Congressman West, having a congressman here in your backyard, especially next door to the facility, would pay dividends. I can tell you, without saying too much, because I wasn't in on the meeting, but Congressman Westerman has convened the players that needed to be in the room, the state being the main one, but also Department of Interior, National Park Service, etc., and things are moving in that realm. That doesn't mean we'll have anybody in there in the next few months. It does mean that it's moving up the list on the federal list of things to be done and not maybe buried at the bottom of the pile like the VA was in Little Rock for so many years. So with that, I would like to bring up our partnership chairman, Scott Dews, and give you a Majestic update if we may.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you. 2 developments really since we met last and updated you. One Tuesday in late June, we had a group from Dallas come to Hot Springs. This was a group that we had done 2 Zoom meetings with in December and January. They came in, spent about 7 hours in Hot Springs. They got here around 11 o'clock. We took them downtown. Random Tuesday in June, and downtown was bustling, and they just couldn't believe it. So we had lunch with them. We took them, walked the site, took them to the mayor's hotel, went into the waters, and kind of showed them some of the existing upscale hotels that we have downtown, and introduced them to a couple other groups of people throughout the day. And I think they told every new group, your downtown is something. I mean, they really couldn't believe it. So they'd seen the package. So they said, really though, you can't tell what this site is until you walk it. You know, they said this didn't show up on a map in Dallas. And so it was a really positive visit. They were excited about it. They want to come back. We would like to have a second visit with them. And then I actually had a call today with a Little Rock developer that wants a copy of the package. Another developer that would have the backing to do this project has done similar projects. expressed a lot of interest in coming over to Hot Springs, and we told them we'd like to have them over and walk the site and tell them a little bit more about it. So I expect that we'll book that either for late July or August, depending on vacation schedule. But that's probably the two big developments or big updates since our last report. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions of Mr. Dews? Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So Scott, for right now, how many interested entities do we have that are currently viewing that Majestic site? Is it 12 plus 2 or?
Well, the 12, we sent those 12 out, and we have not heard back from any of them. Again, I think that's an indication of the environment with construction costs and interest rates. We have begun working some kind of grassroots connections and other connections with people on our committee to get meetings, and that's kind of how these two have been generated. So right now we've had one very interested one on the site, one that wants to come soon, and then we do have a couple of meetings kind of in the next 2 months scheduled to visit with other folks. So I would say we've moved past those 12, not that we're not still trying to engage with them, but we just haven't heard back from them.
These last two, were these two developments contacted, or were you contacted by these two? Now, the one from Little Rock, you just mentioned to us that they reached out to here, but what about from Dallas?
Based on information that they had seen that we had put out. The group from Dallas reached out to us in December, right after we had gotten the contract from the city, and that was generated through a mutual contact from Hot Springs.
Okay. Do you have any plans to maybe modify the marketing of the Majestic based on kind of the low response numbers of those reaching out to you? Or have you considered that?
We've talked about it. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. We've made a lot of verbal contacts with people, and it's just not moving as quickly as we had hoped. So with these, we're going to work the ones that we have in progress as hard as we can. But again, the thing that our committee has continued to say is we get one shot at this. I mean, that's what we said when we asked for the contract. We feel like it's a generational opportunity to do something really spectacular on that site. We can't get it wrong. And so we don't want to rush into a project. We want to make sure it's the right fit for the community and for the site. So we have discussed that. What else do we do? We're not going to sit and wait on them to come. We have been proactive with it. But at this point, we'll work the ones that we've kind of got in the pipeline.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Dews? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Bill?
All right, Mayor, we'll get in. This is the first item on your consent agenda. It's considered Resolution R23-130, a resolution acknowledging receipt of the City of Hot Springs financial statements for May 2023, and our Finance Director, Karen Scott, will discuss the item.
Good afternoon, and I apologize for my voice. I have a little summer sinus thing going on. The monthly financial statements are issued to keep city management and constituents apprised of the financial condition of the City of Hot Springs. The May 2023 statements will be provided as an attachment in your packet, and staff recommends acknowledging receipt of the May 2023 monthly financial statements. I might also add that the June financial statements will be on your August 1st board meeting, and that time I will do the review that I did after the first quarter. So we'll do a mid-year review comparing this year to last year and so forth.
Any questions of Karen? Director Garcia?
When do you expect the audit report to be presented?
I would not look for it before the middle of August.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is Resolution R23-131, a resolution awarding a contract to Gosley Construction Company, Inc. for certain community development block grant sidewalk improvement projects on Chelsea and Creek Street, and our Assistant City Engineer, Mike Hill, will present.
Good afternoon. Yes, this is a resolution to approve the contract with Gosley. They were the lowest of 3 bids that we got on this project. It was for $163,093. That's actually more money than the three CDBG projects together has, so we plan to put some sidewalk funding with that of $50,419 in order to complete the project. This is the second time this project had gone out for bids. The first time we've got some contracts. It was also teamed up with Morrison. Morrison was the only bid that we got reasonable, so we pulled that out, let Morrison, and then we re-let this one, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay, any questions of Mike? Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have consider resolution R23-132, a resolution approving a transfer of certain sightseeing and charter transportation permits held by the Roberts family members to STD Amusements, Inc. Our city clerk, Harmony Morrissey, will present.
Thank you. The Roberts family has owned and operated a duck boat sightseeing and charter business in downtown Hot Springs since the early 1990s. Between the family members, they hold 3 permits. These permits are held in individual names, doing business as National Park Duck Tours under permit number 5, Ducks in the Park under permit number 4, and Ducks of Hot Springs under permit number 21. Sadly, Mr. Don Roberts, who holds one of the permits, passed away in May. The family desires to continue operating the duck business in Hot Springs as it has for many years, and they've requested to transfer all 3 permits to STD Amusements, Inc. All the duck vehicles are owned, operated, and insured by STD Amusements, Inc., which is in good standing at the Arkansas Secretary of State's and is properly listed DBAs in the names that include National Duck Park Tours, Ducks in the Park Tours, and Hot Springs Duck Tours. So the code requires a board of director approval of any transfer of transportation permits. The code sets forth the procedure by which this is done, and pursuant to that, the Transportation Advisory Committee held a public hearing on Thursday, July 6th, during which they voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the transfer of these permits. The specific request is to approve the transfers of 3 permits. The one held by Don Roberts, DBA National Park Duck Tours, and that would be transferred to STD Amusements, Inc., DBA National Park Duck Tours. The permit held by Stacy and Tracy Roberts, doing business as Ducks in the Park, would be transferred to STD Amusements, Inc., doing business as Ducks in the Park Tours. And the permit held by Tracy Roberts, doing business as Roberts Family Duck Tours, to STD Amusements, Inc., doing business as Hot Springs Duck Tours. This transfer does not impact the operation of their business in any way. The permitted activities remain the same. The number of permits and licenses would remain the same. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Stacy Roberts is also here if you have any questions of him.
Any questions of Ms. Harmony? Thank you.
Next, we have resolution R23-133, a resolution awarding a bid to Kimry Painting, Inc. for painting and repairs to the backwash tank at the Washita Water Treatment Plant in the amount of $331,091. And Joey Stadler's here to present. Joe?
Good afternoon, and thank you. This is for the consideration to award the contract for the Washita Treatment Plant Backwash Tank Rehab Project to Kimry Painting, Inc. Bids were opened on the 26th of June, and Kimry Painting, Inc. of Glenpool, Oklahoma, was the low responsive bidder of 10 bids received. The total base bid is $331,091 and will be funded by the 2023 board-approved water treatment plant budget.
Any questions? Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Have you used this vendor before?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Next, we have consider resolution R23-134, a resolution approving change order number 3 to the agreement with Tome Group, Inc. for the construction of Phase 3 of the water treatment plant as part of the Lake Washita Water Supply Project, and authorizing the city manager to approve individual change orders up to $60,000 each and not to exceed an aggregate sum equal to 1% of the original contract amount. And I believe our city attorney is going to cover this item.
Thank you, Bill. Todd's not able to be here today, so I agreed to fill in for him. As you may recall, back in September of 2022, this project was awarded to Tome. The bid or proposal that was given for that was $34,950,000. That was some $10 million less than the next lowest proposal. Shortly thereafter, there were two change orders, which brought the contract up to $39,857,854. And so with those two change orders, the amount went above the 10% that the city manager is typically authorized to approve. This is coming to you through this request for a change order in the amount of $8,000. This change order is for a redesign to the drain of a high service pump chamber, whatever that is. And so they're requesting that you approve this change order. In addition, this resolution, should you approve it, rather than bringing these smaller change orders to you throughout the course of this project to its conclusion, such as this one in the amount of $8,000, staff has requested, and I agreed to write it in a way that hopefully you would consider, to allow the city manager to approve individual change orders on this project going forward up to $60,000, which happens to be the city manager's authority for individual purchases and contracts of that nature. But this would be limited to $60,000 per change order should they reach that amount. Anything other above $60,000 would have to come to you. And if the aggregate of such change orders exceeded 1%, which would be $349,500, those would again come back to you. Again, should you approve this resolution.
Any questions of Brian?
Yes, ma'am.
Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Does the verbiage also include as long as it's not exceeding the budgeted?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to make.
Yes,
I
thank you.
know how thorough you are, but
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Any additional questions? Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, Brian, based on what you were saying, any change order amount that is less than $60,000 up to 1% is just going to be approved by the city manager, not come before the board until it reaches the amount of $349,000?
Or if one of the change orders exceeded 60.
Got you.
Yeah, and I have no doubt the city manager will be happy to send you all reports if and when any of those should come forward.
So for an example of what that might look like, let's just say, a total of 30-something change orders come into play, and after the 31st, it now reaches $350,000. Would that mean that particular change order needs to come back before the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was there a time limit on this too, like a certain time amount, or just the completion of the project?
The completion of the project, which
Okay.
which is governed by the terms of the agreement. They have approximately 800 and something days left on the project.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
I have a question, but I'm not sure if it's one we're supposed to ask here, but then since this is on consent, we can't ask.
Shoot.
So you said it was 10 million less than the next bidder,
It was,
correct?
yes, it was 45 million. And the
Okay.
one after that was 54 million.
So, I don't know about bidding on $1 million contracts, but is it, to me, it sounds like you bid less, but then you keep change order and you get back up to the regular price. Are we close to that?
No,
Okay.
in fact, we are still at 39. We're at 39,800,000.
So we're still less than the nearest,
Oh, we're still, yeah, $6 million less.
oh, good. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It's like, I'm gonna bid you.
Well, and I'll tell you, if you recall when this was debated before the board, the three different proposals had varying degrees of exceptions taken from our solicitation. And so in order to get some of those taken off of the plate, if you will, was the first change order. And so that got us.
Very good. Thank you. Bill?
Next, we have consider resolution R 23-135, a resolution awarding a bid to Coakley Company, Inc. for the 2023 water line improvement projects in the amount of $1,250,207, And again, Joey Stadler.
Thank you, sir. This is for the consideration to award the bid for the 2023 water line improvement projects to Coakley Company Incorporated. Locations for these projects include Holly Street, Poplar Street, and Central. Some of these lines have been in service for over 100 years. We are upgrading the size and material of these pipelines, as well as isolation valves and fire hydrants. 3 bids were opened on June 26th with Coakley Company, Inc. as the low responsive bidder. These projects will be funded by the board-approved 2023 water distribution budget with a total base bid of $1,250,207.
Very good. Any questions of Joey on this item? Thank you.
Next, Mayor, we'll have your first item under your new business. It's considered consider ordinance O-2316, an ordinance authorizing a contract for services with High Impact Movement, Inc., pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 1458-104-18, and for other purposes in the amount of $100,000. And our Deputy City Manager, Lance Spicer, will present.
Yeah, thank you. As stated, this is a contract for services between the city and High Impact Movement. High Impact Movement, of course, is led by Mr. Amos Gray. He will be attending the board meeting to present some of their deliverables that they gave to us. It'll also be in your packet, but he'll provide some additional information to it Tuesday evening. A little bit about the program. Of course, it is in fact growing. You'll see in your packet as far as the attendance, it is increasing. The contract for services is for an after school and a summer program. So those, it's a $100,000 budgeted program, but it does have that after school and that summer program component. Of course, right now we're in the summer program portion of it. Little bit additionally, really what the outcome of the program is to kind of help teenage and youth individuals to develop themselves as the best citizens, future citizens of Hot Springs as they can be. Provides those educational and life skills programs. If you haven't been down there to Amos's place at Champion College, stop by anytime. Certainly he's more than willing to visit with you. You'll see a lot of young men and women getting a lot of good care. So, and of course I think he'll say that unequivocally, but the program does operate out of Champion College on Belding Street. They also lease, no-cost lease some property from the A&P Commission on the corner of Carson and Belding. So they the program is obviously growing in the city. This will be the third year for the program that the city has participated in it. This will be a contract extension that will run until July 31st of 2024. So we're both in agreement to continue it. A little bit about the funding amount. The $65,000 that will be in the 2024 budget will be for your consideration for the 2024 budget. The $34,000 is budgeted, or $35,000, sorry, is budgeted currently in the 2023 budget. But total contract amount is $100,000. Entertain any questions.
Any questions for Lance? Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Lance, we talked about, and Amos has agreed to provide some financials on
Yes.
HIM. Will those be in the packet too?
He provides those within 4 months. We have his prior year. He provides those, I believe it's 4 months at the close of his fiscal year. So those will be provided later this year.
So his fiscal year is
I believe he operates on a calendar.
on the calendar. So do we have, we'll have last
Yeah,
year's
they will
statement?
be in there.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
and then maybe something year to date.
Yeah, and we'll
Okay.
also have their 2023, their budget, current budget, and the projected 24 budget as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Very good, thank you.
Next, and your final item is ordinance O-2317, an ordinance establishing noise control for the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, establishing a penalty for violations, amending ordinance number 6392, declaring an emergency and for other purposes, and again, our city attorney.
Thank you, Bill. As he mentioned, previously the board had adopted ordinance number 6392 which established our noise ordinance for the various district zonings. We had different zones for residential, commercial, C1, and then we even had special exemptions for what would have been our amphitheater downtown didn't come to fruition. We are now dealing with a new type of noise, and I'll just display that for you. Can you hear that? So this is what is generated from a data center or a digital data mining location. Some people would think of it as cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, something of that nature. This has become a topic of discussion across the nation and currently in our state. It has really ratcheted up the discussion because of the passage of Act 851 of this year. That is referred to as the Arkansas Data Center Act of 2023, which incidentally, the act does not define data center. We're left to our own devices to try to guess what that is. But in essence, it is a location which uses a series of computers. They call them, I don't know, block bunching or something. Blockchain. Thank you, blockchain network. It's like the Book of Faces and Twittergram. But in any event, this is something that's cropping up across our state. What you just listened to there is an example of something in Damascus, Arkansas. There's currently one going in Bologna. A lot of controversy there in Faulkner County. There are others across the state. One that has been identified as being a potential location, although I don't think that there's been any groundbreaking, is the old Weyerhaeuser location in Mountain Pine. Garland County is actively looking to address this issue. I've seen their ordinance, which was a model prepared by the Arkansas Association of Counties. The Arkansas Municipal League did not have any such information. As we attended the conference this last month, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know this was a thing until I saw it in our newspaper and knew that our county was taking steps to address this issue. And so we certainly want to work with the county in that regard. We happen to have a noise ordinance which helps us. The county doesn't have a noise ordinance, so they're dealing with it from a different angle. In essence, what this act has done, this 851, it essentially limits what local government, cities and counties can do to regulate this. It's another example of taking away the local control. What it does in particular for us, it says that local government shall not enact or adopt an ordinance, policy, or action that limits the sound decibels generated from home digital asset mining other than the limit set for sound pollution generally. Impose a different requirement for digital asset mining business that is applicable to any requirements of a data center. Again, a term that is not defined. Rezone an area in which a digital asset mining business is located without complying with applicable state law and local zoning ordinances, or rezone an area with the intent or effect of discriminating against a digital asset mining business. And so if we wait until after August the 1st, which is the effective date of this act, much like all of the others, they didn't handle the emergency clause correctly with some of their legislation, so it's all becoming effective August 1. Then we will be limited by what state law says that we can or cannot do. As I said, you currently have limits on decibel levels within residential commercial C1. So this would also create one for data centers or for digital mining locations. The levels that the county is adopting and the levels that, by the way, your packet will have a series of links. I don't know how many there are in there now, but I seem to be adding links to it all the time. I think it may be up to about 10 or 11 links of various broadcast, videos such as this, interviews, articles, things of that nature, and you can just kind of educate yourselves on whether or not you would want this in our community. And so in any event, we are not prohibiting them in any form or fashion. However, the decibel levels that would be allowed from such a location would be 65 during daytime hours. That's 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., 55. Your previous ordinance for residential was 70 and 60. And so I'm recommending that we bring that down to the same level that we are applying to data centers, which is what the Act itself recommends that you do. So that would also be 65, 55, 65 during the daytime, 55 at night. Commercial was 85 and 60. Recommendation is to go to 75 and 60. Also to change the midnight hour to 11 p.m. C1, which I think everyone would recognize is the city's entertainment district, if you will, for lack of a better word. That would go from 90 and 60 to 85 and 60 and keep that midnight hour cutoff time. The data center would have the same time frame as the residential, essentially treating data centers, data mining operations, the same as residential. Be happy to entertain any questions that you might have. As I said, Act 851 does not define data centers, even though it uses that term to describe what you can and cannot do. There were, I think, 5 total bills that were introduced in this latest general session related to data centers. 3 of them did not pass. Another one did pass. It has more to do with credits and rebates on equipment that they purchase for this purpose. And so that act also does not define data center, but it does define data center equipment. And so I have taken that and crafted that into a definition for us, that a data center is a place at which you use data center equipment, which include, and not limited to, and then they have a whole page of the things that are listed there. So you'll see that obviously in your packet. This is something that if you watch the reports, if you read the articles, you will see that in the wrong situation, it is untenable.
Director Holliday.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So you're referencing all of these zones, but we don't have data centers in our table of permitted uses. So what, like, let's say someone were to come and want to put one in a residential area, I can't imagine we even have a conditional use that would have fallen. So how does that even begin to work?
For some reason, I knew that it would be Director Holliday that would ask this question.
Well, I mean, and I don't disagree with what you're doing. I'm just like,
it is a perfect question, and that was my first question to myself. How can I get this in the zoning code quick enough?
Right.
Can't. It's got to go through the planning commission. It's got to do this. It's got to do that. And then it dawned on me. These would, if it's in a residential, then this is going to be a home occupation.
Mm.
We do have rules for home occupation.
Can't even imagine living on top of that.
And so those are pre-existing ordinances. That's not something that's going to take effect in August. These have been, ordinance of the city for decades.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious about.
Yes. But you are exactly right. Data center, however that term is defined, is not found in our chart. We do have mining, unspecific, whatever that is.
In M zones.
Right.
And the video sound clip, that's, I'm assuming, standing a reasonable, I have no reference for what you just played, other than it does. It sounds like an old school computer, but is that standing on the sidewalk, listening through a building? Like,
across the
what-
street.
Yeah, you'll.
Across the street?
Actually, this one's not. This is a brand new one. The one, the Bologna is one across the street. This is in Damascus, and you'll see there's no, it's not on the news. This is they just uploaded it on YouTube. It's someone standing in their backyard in what is borderline suburban rural. You can tell that there's a new road that's been opened, and there's maybe 3 or 4 brand new homes with swimming pools, and you see a field and trees, and you don't even see any other building. But as they pan, you can tell where the noise is coming from, and it's from a data center just on the other side of the trees.
Okay, so this is definitely manufacturing level noise, is what it sounds. I mean, this is like factory level noise.
It seems to be.
Okay.
It seems to be.
That's wild.
Some of the descriptions that you'll hear the people who are interviewed speak of, and Bill and I have been watching these things pretty intently over the last couple of weeks since we learned about this. Some people describe it at best as a swarm of bees, at worst a jet that just won't take off.
I mean, it's like somebody vacuuming next to your head while you sleep.
Well, and you're right. And so you look at some of the charts about, how loud is this, how loud is that. And so a leaf blower, if the mayor is using a leaf blower right next to me, it's probably louder than this. However, it's not incessant.
Right.
It's not continuous. He eventually is going to get tired or run out of gas, or his plug or his battery or something's going to go low, and he's going to quit. These don't quit.
Yeah, no, they'd be 24/7. Okay, no, I was just, curious about how all of this would fall out in general, but no, thanks for finding a workaround. I appreciate that.
Any questions? Okay, Director Garcia.
Will the language include anything if you're, or I don't know what levels, if these are consistent with levels that the county is looking at, but if you are residential, but you border another
Yes, ma'am.
county property, or somehow they get it in a another zone.
Excellent point. If I didn't make that clear earlier, the reason I chose 65 and 55 is that's what the county is putting in there.
Okay, that's what I did. I read
It's not
that
the only
article.
reason.
But it's consistent.
It seems to be a pretty common level that people are using in their regulations. It happens to be the level that Garland County is considering.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Director Webb?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. To help clarify this sound, where does it exactly come from this particular data center? Is it like HVAC coolant systems that are cooling down the computers, or what?
Mostly it is fans that are using to cool. There are other methods. It's computers, and they have so many of them, and what do we call them? Some kind of branch, olive branch? No, blockchain. There are so many of them, and it depends on how large the structure is, depending on what avenues they're using to keep them cool. Is it water cooled? Is it fan cooled? Is it in a metal building? Is it in a well insulated building? Is it in a basement? There are some regulations. Lance and I were talking about a city in Virginia that makes you put it, 30 feet underground if you want to have one there. Things of that nature.
How does the level of decibels get measured? If any of these sites are in question?
By meter.
Okay,
By
and where
meter.
does somebody obtain that meter?
well,
They would call the city and we would come out?
The police enforce it, and that's the way it has been. The noise ordinance that already existed prior to you taking office, the police have meters, and they measure it from the property line.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Additional question, Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, do we have any of these businesses in Hot Springs now?
Not that we're aware of, certainly none that we've received a complaint about.
Okay.
I'm not trying to say that there isn't someone out there who has a basement and they have a couple of computers that they've got blockchained together.
Are we going to have Jeff Winter review this ordinance before, because based on the terminology you've been using, I think we should have it clarified and nailed down by someone who really knows what they're talking about.
I appreciate that, and I hope you can also appreciate my sarcasm.
I can. Thank you. Mine too, by the way.
But all of the terms that you'll see listed here are the terms that were defined in the Arkansas Data Centers Act of 2023. The one that you won't see that was in that act is the one that we have come up with using another act that talks about data centers and data center equipment. So they have these definitions in the act, and then after they define the terms, they never use them again. So I mean, this piece of legislation, I'm not sure what the intent was, what the motivation was, but it did nothing to give us any real guidance. And so that's why I think that it's important for a city like Hot Springs to pass some legislation to deal with it until they figure it out in Little Rock.
If we should have any of these businesses now, would they be grandfathered? Would they come under this ordinance as it's written when it takes effect?
Bear in mind, this is not zoning, so this is sound. From the day of passage, because there is an emergency clause due to the impending effective date of August 1 for the state act. If there's a violation of the noise ordinance after this passage, penalties apply.
Okay. Thank you.
One other thing you'll notice in here, there's a provision that I added that allows that in addition to the city being able to enforce this ordinance, if there is a resident who seeks to sue for a nuisance and seek injunctive relief and compliance with the ordinance, they're at liberty to do so.
Any additional questions, Director Garcia?
Just, are POAs allowed to have a bylaw with a lower decibel level?
Yes,
But the city doesn't enforce that?
that is correct.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And so naturally, if you're inside your POA and you're hearing noise from outside the POA, it would have to be the city limit.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Any additional questions of Brian? Well, hearing none. Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes the items for your upcoming meeting.
Well, it looks like we're going to have a very short meeting next week unless
Don't jinx it.
did I just jinx us? That's good. So we'll see. Okay, next Tuesday at 6 p.m. right here at Board Chambers. See you then. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you.